Lady Gaga is here. Gaga, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. What I really, really love about you and admire about you is that every single show, every single performance, there is 150% commitment from you. I mean, every show is equally as important, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all so important to me that every time my fans or any new audience sees me live, that they feel like they're getting the same experience that you get during my live tour. And it's more difficult before the tour starts to kind of put on a really big show every time. But I kind of wanted to do that more than anything, was give the audience what they wanted.
You know, if you go to the gym and you know in the full hour you're going to do whatever 15 different exercises, and so you kind of hold back on exercises 1 through 8 or 9
to save something.
To save something. I feel like you don't ever hold back on any of your exercises in your career, right? So how do you continue to have 150% when you get to exercise number 13 and 14 and 15 in your career?
I don't know. I'm really excited, and I'm so happy with the success of Born This Way. It's, reinvigorated me to start working on the next record, and I just keep getting so inspired by the fans and their creativity and their drive. Their ambition keeps me ambitious.
When you think about what your fans think of you, what do you want them to think?
I don't really know. I guess I want them all to think something completely different, have a different relationship with me, depending on what they need me to be.
Yeah. Well, Marry the Night last week came out, and I know there's been a lot of talk about that day in your life that you recreated, that you saw artistically, that you relived in your mind and then in the video. And I also saw that we only got to see part of it, that there's more to you being in that moment that we haven't seen.
Yes.
Can you tell me about what we didn't get to see?
Well, it's at least 30 minutes of more footage. And that's just from that one setup. And it's a really chaotic scene where I just completely got lost in the moment of recreating that evening. And it's funny because when I speak about how I view things and my perspective, I think sometimes people don't understand that it's sort of just my philosophy and my approach to the work. But the video is autobiographical, so there's nothing in the video that is untrue, if that makes sense.
Was the meeting at Interscope at 4 p.m.?
I think that's when Vince and I met that day, or the next day. So I think I tried to make it as real and true to the story as possible. But I remember very clearly when Vincent Herbert and I met in California, and it was in the afternoon. So
and what was your state of mind going into this? Is the label meeting where you ended up, but what was this like the state of mind walking in the door and the state of mind walking out the door?
Well, I said to Vince, there will never be another artist that you will sign that will work as hard as I will. And I told him I wanted to be the biggest pop star on the planet. And I also told him...
Check.
Well, I thought it was important to sort of as a disclaimer to him, because I dressed so different and the music was more experimental. At the time, there was no dance music on the radio for Top 40, so he knew that it was going to be an uphill challenge for us. But I was assuring him, I'm not interested in being an underground pop singer that makes underground music. I'm interested in taking what's underground and making it overground. So I said that to him. But the other thing I said was, if you or anyone at the label doesn't 100,000% believe in me as an artist as I am right now, I want to know.
Right.
And
what did he say?
He just said, Gaga, you're it. And he just really believed in me. And he was really the first person to really, really believe in me as I was. And
so when you said you wanted to be the biggest pop star on the planet, was there... Because part of me thinks, okay, I'm going to say it in the room so they never see me sweat, but when I go home, maybe I'm not quite sure I can be that. Or did you really believe that in your DNA?
I really believed that.
You did when you said it.
I believed it since I was really young. I never really... I sort of was already the biggest pop star in my own mind.
Yeah.
Like, whether or not anyone knew it or not. It's sort of the delusion of the and I of the craft. And I always say that to people when they say, "What would you be doing if you weren't making music?" I say, "Well, I'd be making music. You just wouldn't know where I was,
Yeah,
and you wouldn't know the songs."
I saw that you are the first artist since the Beatles to be nominated for Album of the Year 3 years in a row. How does that feel?
Crazy.
I mean, how does that feel to hear that?
I'm just so excited to be able to look back on where I was when I was, first starting out as a musician, and remember and still know how much the Grammys truly meant to me then and how much they mean now, and to be honored just with a nomination for the consistency of the work as a full body and not just for the singles. It really means a lot.
So when you stand up on a stage like that and you know what it's about and you know what you saw when you were a child, what goes through your mind?
Well, I was like peeing my pants the other night because I hadn't been nominated yet, and I was about to perform with Jennifer Nettles from Sugarland, and I go out on stage and I was like, oh, if I don't get nominated for Album of the Year and I have to sing You and I, am I going to have my first public breakdown? Because there were many that weren't nominated for Album of the Year that had amazing records. But you get all dressed up and you go to perform, and you hope that the evening will, I'm hoping to make my dad proud. I'm hoping that all the young producers that worked on the album are, going to be rewarded or at least feel honored for their hard work. I worked harder on Born This Way than I did on any of my previous work. So
just because you were conditioned, or you in your head you said, I'm gonna make this one.
I wanted to overachieve.
Yeah.
I wanted to be an overachiever.
I think you've been bitten by that bug.
Well, I was for this album.
You mentioned making your dad proud, and your parents have been together for a long time, right?
Yeah, for 30 years.
30 years. When you look at your mom, your dad, and their relationship, do you think to yourself, you want to do that?
Sure. Yeah. Of course. So that's awesome. Mm-hmm. My dad just, Cindy, make me a tuna sandwich.
Wait, it's Italian. I thought they have an Italian place. I thought there's an Italian restaurant they're opening.
At home, my mom doesn't cook. My mom's good with like lunch things, midday snacks. But my dad's the chef of the house, and
so is he a foodie? Or just he just loves to cook? No,
he's not a foodie.
Okay.
He's like a real old Italian. He, put a big piece of meat in a pot.
Right. And let it slow cook?
Yeah, let it slow cook for like 3 days. But the night of the Grammy nominations, my dad was texting me all night, and it was so cute because he tends to love the stuff that's a little less wholesome.
Really?
Yeah.
Was he at all? So when you saw the video for Marry the Night, was he at all worried about you when he saw that that's what you went through?
No.
Like in hindsight, worried?
He didn't know the truth of that day until probably about 1.5 years ago. There was only 2 people in my life that really knew the story as it happened for real, which I keep trying to punch that home with you guys, because I think that the opening monologue in the video gives the impression, if you don't really listen to it, that it's my interpretation of what happened. A lens, to me, like a filter, is completely different from a lie.
Yeah.
And the video is the most honest thing I've ever
But if I'm your father and I watch that back and it's your lens, I would say to my daughter, "Gosh, I can't believe you went through that. I'm so worried."
He was like, "You're the."
Really?
Yeah. He
proud of you.
He texted me. He called me, and he was like, "That was so raw, and
wow,
the angles that you chose." And I loved, how. And my dad really understands me, so he's like, "I love how linear it was in the beginning, and then in the middle it was chaotic, and at the end it was graphic, but it wasn't.
Wow,
he's
trained."
Well, he over the years, my family gets, they get to know sort of my vocabulary. My sister's, a fashion designer too. And so I guess in our household, we're sort of used to talking about art and fashion and music all the time. And the same thing at the Grammy nominations. He's like, that opening was the and he was like, he said something like, "Never wear red, white, and blue. Always be the underdog." I was like, "Yeah, okay, Dad."
Got it, Dad. Call you later.
I'm like, "Have you had a couple drinks?"
So I heard that you recently have been spending time with Elton John working on a song. How far along is that?
Well, it's written.
Did
I've
you wrote it?
written a.
Did you write his lyrics?
Well, if he wants to change them, we'll record it. Do whatever he likes. I wrote the lyrics, yes, but I'm not gonna.
When are you seeing him again?
Probably pretty soon. I mean, I see them quite, as much as I can.
I have to tell you, my friend does his pedicures at his house, and he's always
Ellen,
he's always talking about
He's
always talking about you.
Your friend probably shouldn't have told you that.
But he's always talking about you. So then I see her, and we're very close, and she says, Elton's just in love with Lady Gaga.
Well, remind me not to use her for my pedicures.
That's so funny. We do. I do stuff like that with my friends that are in music.
You do.
If
What do you do?
someone comes over to do my nails or for a massage, and they talk about, they're like, oh, I know your friends. I'm like, oh, okay.
Okay, this is the last
I'm
time.
texting them, like, by the way.
They say, don't say anything, but I just massaged Elton. Well, Gaga, thank you so much for being so generous with your time, and we appreciate you coming by our show this weekend.
And thank you to the fans for making the Marry the Night video such a success with E. And
thank you.
It meant a lot to me that you guys did that, and we broke all the records that we had held with telephones. So it just really means a lot, especially since it's so personal, and I hope that they all take away from it that sense of stealth and ambition to never give up, no matter how hard it gets. That's what I really wanted to share.
And you did. Next stop for Gaga, I will see her in Times Square on New Year's Eve.
Yes,
we'll be doing that
with
live.
You.
Yes.
You're gonna be so sick of me.
Never. All right, we'll be right back.